Why would it be important for people to share their dreams in a group? I think primarily because you get so many different angles on the same dream. Every dream is multi-layered, so if you have a group, say, of 10, 15 people, you'll get 10 to 15 different angles on the one dream. That's one...
Yeah, all of which are very likely to be true.
Right, so it helps to expand our consciousness to be able to hold all those different meanings at the same time, and to see that they're all relevant, and I'm not choosing either or, I'm experiencing a yes and. But one of the things I like to say a lot is our dreams are filmed live and in person in our own psyche, and they really are very uniquely personal experience, but when we bring them to a group, we're allowing someone else that hears the narrative of the dream to experience and imagine the dream as their own as well. So,
and even see it if we draw pictures, which I'm always encouraging people to do.
That's right. So there's a way to, it's personal, but it's also global. So I like the term globally personal to explain Dreamwork often. So that it's something that feels very intimate and personal, like I'm not going to be able to share this with anyone, but when I am in a group and I share it, I realize a lot of people dream similar themes. And that's another empowering part of the process, is to realize that we're not individuals that are just walking around in our own...
Who are alone.
Exactly. It's our common shared humanity, as you so often say.
In the West, there has always been this tendency to draw distinctions between soul and spirit. And when you are working with dreams, it becomes increasingly clear that it's a distinction without a difference. And unfortunately, clinging to it for ideological reasons often ends up supporting institutional sexism, whether it is the person's conscious intent of doing that or not. It's one of the problems with Jung's terminology, Animus and Anima. These Latinate, gender-connected terms, which he gets very fierce about, saying, women do not have an anima, men do not have an animus.
Right.
But turns out, when you're working dreams, that it's not true. That by his own definition, say Animus, for example, is an image created out of the deep psyche, symbolically representing the dreamer's deepest intuitions and understandings about what developed, evolved, mature masculinity looks like. And that is as mysterious a piece for us men as it is for women. And I think one of the reasons for that is that if men were to get in touch with that mature masculinity, the oppressions of masculinist sexism would be recognized for the bogus nonsense that they are. And it would melt away because the men themselves would say, what is this nonsense?
And I think a really important part of saying something as masculine or feminine is we have to understand that masculine and feminine are energies that flow through the universe. Yeah. And they are non-gender specific, even though I label it as masculine, and even though I label it as feminine, it's not mutually exclusive for only a woman to experience the feminine energy of the universe. I often do think of spirit and soul not separate, as two sides of the same coin, one with more of a masculine tone and one with more of a feminine tone. That doesn't, again, I don't appreciate the gender specifics that divide. I appreciate the embracing of realizing that we're all have masculine and feminine energies within us. And if I label it as spirit, or if I label it as soul, I'm talking about something that that's true for everyone, regardless of man or woman.
And the evolutionary edges of these gender-related energies show up in the dream world all the time.
All the time. And the dream has no way to show me that it's masculine energy unless it wraps it up in the body of a man in the dream. And then I say, okay, well, that's a masculine energy, particularly if it's a man that shows up in my dream that I don't recognize. Someone that doesn't remind me of my husband, my grandfather, my brother, my uncle, anyone that I've encountered before in my life. it's a new form of a masculine, and that's in a way the dream has the message of saying this is an energy that's coming that has no overtones of any emotional trappings.
If it were me, it would be interesting to note that I left father off that list.
Well, this is true. Well, and so see, the unconscious speaks once again.
Yes, wide awake.
Wide awake. So our omissions are just as important. It's just like today I said bad and evil instead of good and evil.
These are the big contrasts.
Bad and evil.
The satisfactions of working together are immense, and being able to rely on one another for balance.
That's right.
Very relaxing, very energizing.
Yeah, I totally agree. There's some part about this. I understand what you're saying. There is a big part of being present for the dreamer, and being present for what unfolds with the dream work. I often use the phrase of, I don't write this stuff. I just show up to work to see what happens, and I have no idea. And in fact, the confession I freely make is that any dream that's shared with me, the first thing that comes to my mind is I have absolutely no idea what this could mean. And if I come in with that understanding and I have that awareness of I'm ready to receive now whatever is going to come in through the group or through intuitively through just honing our abilities over time of knowing what to listen to and how to be guided. And I think one of Jeremy's famous things, and I say it often too, if I hear it 3 times, then I have to say it. And it might not be something I want to say.
Right.
It might be something that I know is might be quite shocking. Mm-hmm. However, if I keep hearing it, there's an intuitive sense that's urging me that this needs to be said. And often that helps to guide the dream into the direction it wishes to go.
Well, I think it helps that all dreams, no matter how small they may appear to be, have multiple layers of meaning. And the group of necessity brings multiple perspectives. So when the focus of group attention is on dreams, there's this natural resonance between the fundamental nature of the dream itself and the fundamental nature of group discussion.
What we found over years, what tends to happen is whatever dreamers come together and whatever dreams are shared seems to be exactly what was supposed to happen for that particular group. Because very often...
Right, not just for the person, but for the whole group.
Right, because very often the dreams that are shared throughout the weekend will have a common theme that runs through over the 2.5 days that we do this work. And that's not something that any of us can plan or contrive or set up ahead of time. It happens. And we have learned to trust the process to allow it to happen. Like, for instance, with this weekend, the Fool has come up a number of times. The number 0 has even shown up to announce the Fool. So we can count countless times where this has happened. We've had sessions that have had a theme of grief. And suddenly we realized there's a number of people who've lost loved ones, and the magic of how months ago when this event was planned, and some people sign up months ahead of time. How is it possible that they all come to this nexus of coming together and sharing an individual human experience that happens to synchronistically line up with the dream work? And that is something that keeps me going personally with a lot of it. It's the enrichment and to watch people evolve over the weekend is quite an amazing and rewarding feeling to see someone's body language change, their voice inflection change, they're smiling instead of hunched over and sad, and they feel connected when they came in feeling disconnected. And there's something about that synchronistic piece that reminds me that everything is connected.
One of the reasons this process works is that all our dream experience, regardless of language, regardless of gender, regardless of class, regardless of formal education or the lack of it, regardless even of our relative states of mental and emotional stability, the language of the dream really is universal. And both Billie and I tend to rely on the language that Carl Jung offers us to talk about that. Synchronicity, collective unconscious, and archetypes. They're not the only language around. There are other ways of talking about it. It just happens to be, I think, the most elegant and carefully thought through way of doing it.
And people often ask me how to describe, how to define an archetype. And I use this phrase often. I say, an archetype really can't be defined, it can be described, and because it's individual to each of us. And I think Jeremy has a wonderful metaphor to say it's like the organs of the body. We all share the same organs, but each one of us have individually different conditions of our lungs and different conditions with our kidneys. Everyone's kidneys and lungs are not equal. However, we all know that we each are born with the same organs. Yeah. And archetypes, I also think that I will attract a particular archetype in my life when I have a keyhole that needs to be filled. If there's something in me that's missing, I will tend to attract that energy to me because the archetype will be fulfilled whether we like it or not.
That's right.
And it's larger than life. It's bigger than us. It's not something that I can grab hold of and control. That's why in dreams that we often say, when something shows up larger than life, when it's an owl the size of a building, or something that's just way bigger than life, then
a spider the size of an interstate truck.
Right. So and we've heard them all.
Yeah.
So there's this sense of immediately the archetypes are announcing themselves. This is an archetypal energy. We've gone beyond the personal layer at this point. This spider does not only have to do with me personally as the dreamer, it has to do with everyone.
Everyone on Earth.
All of humanity from the beginning of time until now and into the future. It's an energy that it is, and I want to emphasize that again, it's larger than life. As humans, we so often want to control and containerize things. The archetypes do not wish to be containerized. They can't be.
One of the nice things from my point of view about the metaphor of the human body is that all the organs live only in vital relationship with each other. And whenever you try and take an organ out and separate it totally, for purposes of definition, from all the other organs, the body dies. So a true understanding of the archetypes does not have a clear boundary. I mean, where do you draw the distinction between the heart and the blood that it pumps around the body? And where do you draw the distinction between the blood that pumps around the body and the organs that the blood nourishes and cleans?
Or the organs that clean and cleanse the blood.
Yep.
It's all
the kidneys and the liver and all. It's a dynamic system, individual aspects of which can be named, but if one is to continue dealing with a living system, the ultimate realization is all these archetypes function together.
That is one of the reasons I personally love to work in groups so often, is because, both Jeremy and I love working one-on-one. It can be very powerful. It is, but I'm limited to my experience and my point of view and my projections in that sense. A lot of wonderful work can be done, but the richness of a group is that everyone brings in their part to season the stew, to be part of the whole group experience of putting in their little bit of, and everyone, as you mentioned, everyone's experience is different. Everyone has different ways of associating to the world, so that puts it all in together and gives the dreamer a chance to experience the dream more wholly, but also it gives every single person a chance to experience the dream as well. So that's why we do it in my imagined version of the dream. Because in my I have no choice but to have, when someone tells me a dream, I have no choice but to imagine myself in that dream. So we emphasize that because then the work can go both ways. It's not the dreamer, it's not the only one on the hot seat. The person making the comment gets the benefit of the work as well.
Yeah, we all do our work in projected form on the incredibly brave gift that the dreamer gives us, because really no dreamer is in a position to know beforehand where the work is going to go.
Because we are uniquely blind to our own dream material.
That's right. No matter how sophisticated we may be, no matter how many dreams we've worked, we are always uniquely and selectively blind to our own dreams. And it's our own stuff. We may be unconscious about it, but it comes out in the projections we make on everybody else.
That's right. I like Louise von Franz, one of my heroes, and I love her work. And she has a comment about you can't see the back of your own head. So we can't see our own back, and that's why help in a group really helps, because all of us can see angles that I, as the dreamer, would be blind to if I was trying. As I tell people all the time, I say, there often are dream dictionaries, and people try to go off and figure out what their dream means. I've even had people walk up to me and say, one woman at a fair said, I've been taking record of my dreams since 1970, and I've got them all cataloged in a bookcase, and I know what every single one of them means. And that was an astounding comment to me, because I thought, and I looked at her and I said, well, that's really amazing, because I don't know what any of my dreams mean, and I there's no way I could know what my dream means. Unless I take it to someone else for their opinion. I might get the top layer. Mm-hmm. I often use the analogy of a cake. I can maybe eat the icing off the top of the cake, but I'm not really going to get to enjoy all of it unless I dig deeper, and I go deeper in, and sometimes into things that might feel uncomfortable to me as the dreamer, things that I don't want to think about, that maybe I've forgotten or tried to forget, and the dream needs me to bring that back up so that I can begin to heal it, because the time is right. Otherwise, I would not have remembered the dream.
Yeah, a particular example of that pops to mind. Folks in recovery from various kinds of addiction, who seriously in recovery, decades without a slip, sponsoring other people, really on the road, will often be blindsided by nightmares, the content of which is that they are back in their worst addictive behavior, utterly lost before recovery was even an idea. And they wake up from these dreams mostly in terror, because they had forgotten how bad it was. For the very reasons that you're describing. Who wants to constantly open the wound and feel the pain and know how bad it was? You want it to heal. Paradoxically, the problem with effective healing is that it is an invitation to forget how bad it was. And if I forget how bad it was, I'm using projective language now, the I form. If I forget how bad it was, then I will lose track of what an achievement it was to overcome it.
Right. Exactly.
And my life will suddenly, in my own conscious mind, become this flat, leveled experience. And so in the service of health and wholeness, I am likely to get blindsided by a nightmare like that in order to be forced to remember, and therefore to realize just what an extraordinary achievement it is to have reached the level of recovery that I've achieved.
And also in that situation, being the person in recovery, I'm imagining I would have more compassion for those whom I'm sponsoring. Because if I go back, have another nightmare about how bad it was, I can then relate to someone who's starting out in recovery. And so let's talk a little bit about nightmares. And nightmares are something that people often say, well, why would I want to work on my dreams? They're just all scary, and they're just these horrible things. People are being decapitated and killed, and it's bloody and it's awful. And they're also, people often come to us and say, do you really want to hear this dream? Because I think it's going to be really quite shocking. And we often have to say to people, you're not scaring us, because we've seen and heard many different dreams, and we have
Many
to.
really horrible dreams
And
on
we-
the surface of appearance.
And the first thing we have to remember is the dream always speaks in metaphor. So we can't look at it literally. This is not literally people dying, and these aren't literally people being decapitated. This is a metaphor, so that I can see how radical the change in my life is taking place. So for dream, I like what Jeremy says often with dreams is if I have a nightmare and it wakes me up and it really rattles my cage, one thing to remember is wake up, pay attention. There's a survival issue at stake.
Yeah.
There's some reason that we so often forget our dreams. So the dream has to come in a nightmarish fashion so that I do recognize it.
To seize our attention and make sure it won't slip out of mind. And again, paradoxically, in my experience, and I know it's Billie's experience as well, the worse the nightmare is on first encounter, the surer I can be that the information that it has to convey is of great importance and tremendous value in healing and promoting health. Physical health, emotional health, psychological health, intellectual health, spiritual health,
Right.
all those levels.
And so often the nightmare will come in because there is an urgent sense of timing. If it is a health issue, I really need to get to the doctor, and the timing is of the essence. I have to find out what it is happening with my body. Sometimes, like you say, it's a relationship timing issue. There has to be something that I have to do to change my relationship with my family of origin, so that I can be able to continue to become more of my authentic self. And this timing issue sometimes can be so critical that the dream has to come in and say, wake up, pay attention.
There is a creative role for the dreamer's waking mind to play in the further unfolding of all the different layers of meaning and implication that reside in this dream.